Hello everyone, I'm James Jack. Welcome to Skills to Pay the Bills. I'm with Ernestine J. Wilson Real Estate. We service the entire area, but we're not here to talk about real estate today. We're here to talk about the SBA as we did last week with my guest, Miss Julie Klaus.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good.
And Mr. William Bill Hawk. And we had a little laugh about me and the mispronunciation of their names, but with a name like Jack, you know, it's not payback, it's just, you know, sometimes well, anyway, that's another story. For today, we're talking about the export business and also import business, because there is a give and take between commerce involving, you know, intercontinental commerce between nations and things like that. But mainly we're talking about SBA's involvement and getting the word out to small businesses that are really considering packaging their goods and exporting them to other countries and establishing that bond with other countries.
Just not goods. Remember, services are also exportable.
And give me an example of a service.
Any type of service. It could be computer services, consulting services, architectural services, engineering services. Really, any time that somebody is providing some type of service for an overseas company and they're billing that company accordingly, that's an export. So they could actually perform the service here in the United States, deliver the service product overseas electronically, what have you, bill an overseas entity. That is an export. So goods and services are
So it's just not manufactured goods.
Absolutely not.
It is
No.
services.
Yeah.
This is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm trying to keep it all contained.
Yeah.
You know, I go to the website, I see it, and I'm saying to myself, wow, there are opportunities. This is the land of opportunities. This is the world of opportunities.
Yes.
Yes, you know, we are now a smaller world, aren't we? Let's get down to some serious business, as your new executive says, you know, in a word. The SBA, you partner with people to get women and men into the business, you know, of exporting and importing. And briefly, would you go back and recap what we talked about in terms of the changes that have been made and the opportunities that are there?
Sure. I think that there's the U.S. market is finite, and so there's a lot more opportunities when you look beyond our borders. And so if businesses are looking for growth opportunities, one natural way to look is for customers outside the United States. Mm-hmm. So the federal government provides a wealth of resources if that's something you're interested in. SBA has a lot of programs and services. A lot of ours focus on the financing side, supporting the transactions, or supporting the whole export process. But other agencies like Department of Commerce and U.S. Department of Agriculture and others all always have programs as well. And the U.S. SBA works with, we're with our federal family, our fellow sister and brother agencies, to try to make sure that the small business community is able to access all of these resources.
Okay, so the last time we talked, I walked into the SBA. I brought a couple of friends, and we all had questions. Each one of them, basically related to their business or their desire to know whether or not this is something that will relate to me later on in the game. Obviously, the SBA wants to get the message out there. How are you approaching this? Is it just the website? Is it videos? Or what about seminars? You mentioned seminars. What are all the things that you are doing?
All of the above. We try to reach people at every level. We have SBA has a very extensive field structure. So there's at least one district office in every state, and we work with the local business, the businesses in our local community. And if they walk into an SBA district office, we try to take an assessment of what their needs might be, and then look to the community and see what resources can best support their needs, whether it be one of our resource partners like the Small Business Development Centers or the SCORE program if they need kind of some one-on-one counseling, or whether it's a financing program, or if they're really export ready and we see that, we might send them over to the U.S. Export Assistance Center with Bill and his colleagues from the Department of Commerce that are over there. So we kind of serve as maybe an intake and then try to filter them out to the right resources. If they're not quite ready and they still want to learn a lot, we might say, hey, here's some websites you might find of interest. Export.gov is a great one for people interested in exporting. But there's also a lot of seminars. We put them on from SBA. We co-host with the Small Business Development Centers and SCORE. There's probably something going on nearly every day of the week, depending on what your needs might be.
I noticed that there were all these videos, and as I said before, I just love to sit and watch them, because you learn so much from other people, and they're in a no-nonsense, presentation form. They're not speaking above you. They're not, throwing all types of terms at you that you don't really know. They're everyday people, everyday business people who are doing a very good job of showing people that the opportunities are there. And so it sort of demystifies the notion that the SBA is this behemoth that is just almost impossible to figure out. So you do have a little yellow brick road that you just follow. You get through Munchkin's Land, and you get through this point to this point to get you to Oz, in a manner of speaking.
I think as business owner, you appreciate hearing from other people who have done it and done it successfully. Whether they whatever resource they might have used, we have export success stories on there. So I think it's inspirational and also kind of they did that. I know I could do that too.
So
not just hearing from the federal government talking heads, so to speak.
And we're pretty well entrenched in the communities. I mean, the business development officers at the district offices, they know all the small business development centers, they know all the chambers of commerce, they know all the Rotary clubs, all those. They're pretty familiar with the business community of where they work statewide. So we're a pretty grassroots organization. We're just not up there in an office, looking at files and answering email. We're out in the public constantly. So.
That's interesting, because here we are in the Washington, D.C. area. There's D.C. There's suburban Maryland, suburban Virginia, and we have West Virginia over here. We have Baltimore over here. Each one of us does something differently. Some of us do the same things. We don't manufacture anything in the District of Columbia, so we're mostly service.
Don't be too quick. There's more and more of that coming.
So we don't have smokestacks,
right.
But
No
we
smokestacks.
are making products.
Yeah.
So
beer and whiskey and all kinds. Yeah. There's
beer and whiskey.
Yeah.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so my friends to the west, they're agrarian. They have products too, So your friends in West Virginia and in Virginia and in Western Maryland and Southern Virginia, they know the communities well enough so that when you go in and you talk to someone in an SBA office there, they know that you are coming to them because you have information that is good for them. Likewise, if I'm in Baltimore and I want to be able to ship my, just take them right to the docks and ship my goods and things like that, the Baltimore office knows the Baltimore area very well.
That's correct.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As opposed to everything having to come into Washington, D.C. You don't have to take a day trip to Washington, D.C. to find out about the products and the services that are available through SBA. Very, very interesting. Now let's get back to the export part again. It's not just for women, but it's also for men. It's for anyone who wants to take advantage. But you are doing things to sort of like nudge the ladies along.
That's right. I think, of course we encourage all small businesses to export, but women are, becoming increasingly important among the exporters. As more and more women own businesses, there are more and more opportunities. And I think it's interesting. There's this kind of a global trend. It's not just here in the United States. You know, you look at the microfinancing programs in a lot of emerging markets. Women are a huge beneficiary of those programs, and it helps them to be able to become, you know, more self-sufficient through financially independent through entrepreneurialism. So it's a trend that we're seeing globally, and it's starting to catch on. I know. The U.S. Trade Rep even has put out a blog recently that was talking about women in business and exporting, and it was looking at the U.S. and what women are doing, and then also from a more global perspective. And it was just really interesting that, you know, it's a small percentage now, but it's growing, and it's growing across the board. I think, you know, I've got flanked by the two men here, but not to stereotype.
I don't know about that. Behind every successful businesswoman, there is a man, and he's usually at home, you know, taking care of the children. Quick little story. The company that I work with is Ernestine J. Wilson Real Estate. She's my wife. She is the boss. She is a business person, and she's very aggressive. Most of her friends who have businesses, those who are women, their husbands support their businesses too, and vice versa. Because regardless of whose name is on the marquee, we're all in there to make sure that this business survives. So it sort of transcends the gender aspect of it. You know, even though the woman walks in the door, usually there's a man accompanying her, or he is someone who is in the background, or there may be other women. So it's just not gender specific, as you said before.
Right, and we encourage women to, you know, I think sometimes there's some perceived barriers. So like, oh, well, if I want to go into this country, they're not used to women owning businesses in that country, and I might not be so welcome. But I think we're trying to, you know, get information out there, encourage women to, you know, women tend to network very well with each other, and to hear other women's stories of how they've done it successfully. And like, you know what, this was a barrier I perceived, and it really wasn't the reality when I went into that market. You know, I'm confident I have a great product or service, and I can sell it. I think women, if you know, kind of play on some of the stereotypes even, do well in international business because women tend to be more natural, you know, caregivers. Historically, they've been the caregivers in the family, and that kind of attitude shows commitment, respect, ability to be a little more forgiving and maybe a little more patient, because, you know, you might have a language or a cultural barrier, and you might make a few gaffes here or there, but overall, you know, you're showing your commitment to the foreign buyer.
Well, on that note, as the man, I'm going to take command here and wrap things up. I really enjoyed having you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Pleasure.
And I hope that we can get together again and talk more about what the SBA offers, especially the export-import aspect of it for both manufactured goods and also services. I'm James Jack. You've been my most favorite guest today, along with my most favorite guest today from the SBA. I want you to watch both of these editions, and until the next time, you have yourself a wonderful time doing what you like to do best. Have a good one.